I think there have been some questions that, what does an NBX issued version of USDM look like? And is it going to be the same reserve? Is it going to be the same policy ID? Is it going to be the same token? And I think that the answer to all those questions is yes, it'll be the same token, same policy ID. And I think that one of the operational things we have to do is open up joint access to all the reserve accounts so that NBX can mint off of the same reserve that USDM is issued off of from the US side. I think that once there's millions of USDM in the ecosystem, then there's going to be a lot of people who want to integrate it. And then with that integration will also come a lot of people who want to, monetize it back into dollars. And until we can serve the retail community, I don't think we want them to have to rely on this stablecoin in those DeFi protocols just yet. So it's a lot of chicken and egg. It's a lot of wait for this until that. But right now we're working on all of the things that need to be done for this final retail push.
What's up, Hidden Nation? Welcome to Dapp Central, your home for everything blockchain and crypto. I'm your host here, Fareed. As a part of today's video, we're getting a massive update from the USDM team and the NBX exchange, which have partnered up as their first ever fiat minting partner in the EU. Without any further ado, let me go ahead and bring up today's guests, which include Matthew Plowman, the CEO and president of the USDM protocol. We've also got Stig, the CEO and founder of NBX, followed by Einstein, who's the head of staking when it comes to Cardano specifically. Welcome aboard, gentlemen. How are you guys doing today?
Good morning or good evening, depending on where you are. Hi, thanks for having us.
It is my pleasure. Welcome aboard. Let me go ahead and bring up Matthew here. It's been a minute since we've caught up. How are you doing today, Matt?
I'm doing really well. Thank you for having us all together this morning.
It's a pleasure. There was a massive announcement that was announced about 2, maybe 3 weeks ago now, between USDM and NBX. We've obviously got USDM now live on the mainnet here in Cardano. That was an achievement in itself. But since then, we've seen and heard about the expansion into the European region. So I've got everybody here to dive a little bit deeper into that. And as always, I believe that it's probably best to start off with an elevator pitch in terms of introductions. And so maybe we let the NBX team kick us off, and then Matt, I'll come over to you. So Stig, give us a little bit about yourself, how you came into the space, and how you became the founder of such a reputable exchange in NBX.
Yeah, well, thank you, first of all. I'm not sure if I can do that short, but so yeah, no, I'm the CEO of NBX. I'm together with me here is Einstein. He's our head of staking, but he's also kind of our head of governance as well when it comes to everything blockchain related that has to do with governance. Actually, we started NBX as a solution for a problem for Norwegian Addtl, which is a Norwegian low-cost airline carrier. And we were basically looking at having crypto as a way of payments for airline tickets, but we needed to have an exit or a place to exchange into Norwegian kroners. So we basically, to fix the payment solution, we needed to have a crypto exchange. So we started building that. And when we launched, COVID came, and all the planes were grounded. So it was like, okay, now we're on a crypto exchange. So, but anyway, we started. Now we're 19 people scattered around Europe, 7 developers. And we are regulated in Norway as a eMoney institution and a custody and exchange for cryptocurrencies. So yeah, so we are basically, our strategy is to bridge traditional and digital finance. Mehen is a perfect example of us actually providing that position in Europe for them. So yeah, that's short where we are.
Thank you. I think you did a great job in terms of timing, and you touched on the eMoney license. We'll be diving into that in just a minute. That was actually one of the first things that sort of stuck out to me when reviewing the article and sort of the licenses that you guys hold as an exchange. But before we go any further, Einstein, your turn. Feel free to go ahead and just sort of jump right on in.
Yeah, so I will probably add that we launched with ADA in 2021, so we were fairly early in doing that. We added staking as a service on our exchange, so we actually have individual staking accounts for each of our customers to allow that, and that's also potentially quite important for future governance as well, because that allows you to do individual votes if you want to. So we have been quite active in the Cardano community. Both me and the CTO are members of Intersect, one of the membership-based organizations for Cardano. We hold and attend events of Cardano every year. So, for example, there's a Nordic event. We are quite active there as well. I believe we also sponsor some of these events in the past. And that's part of why we have the agreement here today. Is like NBX saw an opportunity to be part of the community and collaborate with other community efforts. And for me, that is one of the key things. Mehen is really a community-based project founded by Catalyst and with a DAO organizing the governance of it in the future. So those are really important aspects as well for us. So bottom line is NBX has been really active and following the Cardano community, and we want to try to be part of that. We even launched a proposal in Catalyst for listing Cardano native tokens, and we will definitely be on the lookout for other opportunities in the future as well.
That's brand new news to me in terms of your proposal. I'd love to hear how involved you guys are with the community, and I would love to potentially have you guys on for a separate conversation highlighting how you guys see that proposal playing out. And of course, congrats and kudos to the USDM team of taking full advantage of something like Project Catalyst being able to launch one of the first ever fiat-backed stablecoins here in the ecosystem. So that's a good segue over to Matt Plowman. I've had you here plenty of times. I don't think you need an introduction, but in fairness here, over to you for who you are and a little bit about USDM.
Sure, I'll be brief. USDM is a fiat-backed stablecoin that's operating from the U.S. We have a couple companies we've established that are obtaining licenses in the individual states. It's going to be regulated in a similar way to the way USDC is regulated in the U.S. And if you look at the regulatory landscape, the way that we are operating is we launched in 17 states that we've been approved to operate in. And then from those 17 states, we demonstrate competence and we demonstrate that we operate with the highest of standards. So then to go and apply successfully for licenses at the other 30 some states that we need to go get licensed in. And so to that end, our US launch strategy is sort of a snowball strategy where we start with a small bit and then we kind of roll forward. But when we look at other places, if we look at the European Union, for example, you need to have physical presence there in the European Union. You need to have eMoney licenses in the European Union that can be passported around to other jurisdictions. And the easiest way for us to get there is to work with licensed partners to use their operations, to use their operational strategies to access their customer base and then successfully launch USDM to that part of the community. And since so much of the Cardano community is based in Europe, that was top of the list, was to find a strong European partner to go with who is properly regulated, properly licensed to go ahead and issue and redeem the token on the European side. So we're so pleased that NBX, we've been speaking with them for many months. Even before we launched, we had good conversations going. They've been very active in the Cardano community, and we're very happy to start this partnership together.
Thank you for the quick intro. For anybody who's potentially seeing Matt for the first time or hearing about USDM for the first time, I'll leave the links to our prior interviews. A lot of that happening before the actual token launch, and I think one or two following the token launch, sitting down with the Genius Yield team here as well, who's obviously made a pretty big impact in the ecosystem. Okay, thank you all again for the introductions. Moving straight in, I've got a couple of questions for the NBX team, and then we'll shift our focus to Matt talking specifically about USDM, Mehen, liquidity, and all that other good stuff. But for the NBX team, it sounds like you guys obviously are benefiting from this partnership just as much as USDM is. And you guys mentioned the eMoney license. Do you guys maybe just mind sort of kicking us off here with the reasons why you guys wanted to work or decided to work with the USDM team?
Yeah, so if you allow me, Einstein. And you can fill in the blanks afterwards. No, but so this is definitely kind of it's a mutual beneficial partnership here for sure. But it's like one of the things that we obviously see with Mehen is that first of all it's been like we have been very focused on Cardano for a long time. It's a very exciting community, and it's really, and it hasn't really been, let's say, it hasn't gained the position that it really deserved, to be honest. And I'm sure I'm speaking. Everyone listening here is probably feeling that too. So for us, for instance, partnering with Mehen, that's one of the things. Like it's actually kind of we're playing on basically all our instruments. Every put that NBX has, we're actually putting together. Of course, one is the competence that we have, the technical skills to actually to tokenize together with Mehen. The other is, of course, the regulatory framework and the licenses that we have. That is, we have actually started to passport into Europe now. And the third is that by bridging traditional and digital finance, actually a stablecoin. It's like a stablecoin doesn't actually sound that sexy, but if you think about it, it's like it's almost the most important building brick in any DeFi or on-chain finance application. Of course, it's like nuts and bolts. Almost everything that you construct needs to have it. So it's like if you're building a truly decentralized and on-chain finance ecosystem, you need to have a stablecoin, and you need to have a stablecoin that you can trust, right? And then for us being regulated in Norway, taking that kind of oversight and trust that it actually provides by being regulated in Norway into Europe. And this is one of the fine things about Europe is that you have then been passported and we're basically ready to launch everywhere. So that is why that makes us a very good partner for Mehen, so they can actually focus on US, which is of course their kind of main target maybe, and definitely where they have the biggest job in getting licenses in all the states. So for us, we're basically using everything that we have been working on, the strategy, all the competence, everything we have spent so much building. This is basically us actually getting to utilize all of that. So for us, it's super exciting as well. And of course, it will also help us get customers in Europe. Of course, we are strong up in the Nordics and particularly in Norway. But I expect by this that we will get institutions and larger customers that has the need to actually mint and redeem USDM.
Perfect. Thank you. Eystein, you want to add anything there?
Yeah, I think 4 key things. So, see, based on being a Cardano native token issued asset, it has more security. So, for example, ERC20 contracts introduces vulnerabilities such as over and underflows of those smart contracts. The other part is like transparency, directly verified through oracles. Then the ownership model. This a DAO in contrast to privately owned stablecoins. And then finally, the large opportunity on Cardano for composability. For what I mean there is like stablecoins that actually provide easily one-to-one with the underlying value. So, for example, you have like algorithmic stablecoins. They will probably have more variance in their value, and then when you use them, for example, for lending, the lending will cost more because of this variation in price. And with stablecoins that's fiat-backed, you get a much more stability in that, and that composability is a huge advantage, and could be a building stone for a lot of things on Cardano. So it could be used in lending, it could be used by asset-backed stablecoins, it could be used by so many things. So the sky's the limit, and it's exciting to be part of that.
Nicely stated. As a quick summary, you guys touched on the security of the USDM token and the fact that it's a CNT, the transparency, the ownership model, composability, and the fact that DeFi is basically stable coins is basically the underpinning of DeFi, and so much else going on here in this wonderful space. Now, I do have a quick follow-up here, and then I want to shift the conversation into the eMoney license and how that'll be used moving forward with USDM. So given that USDM is a stablecoin provider or issuer, are you guys currently working with any other issuers or any other stablecoins right now at NBX?
No. No.
Short answer.
Perfect. Okay. No, I appreciate that. And as Einstein mentioned, short answer and to the point. Okay, jumping into the eMoney license. For anybody who isn't aware, and I've actually been keeping up with these a little bit closely because of other DeFi protocols which have been sort of applying for very similar licenses. Do you guys mind explaining what the eMoney license allows for you guys to do as a crypto exchange when it comes to custody, etc.? And then any other licenses that you guys currently hold that could potentially be leveraged with USDM and stablecoins?
Yeah, so it's kind of like we have in NBX we have two different licenses. One is like crypto related, which is custody and exchange of cryptocurrencies or virtual assets, which allows us to hold crypto, exchange crypto on behalf of customers, basically operating as a crypto exchange. Another important aspect, of course, that a crypto exchange, a way a crypto exchange operates is you receive fiat deposits. And actually, by having a eMoney license, that allows us to hold fiat money on behalf of customers. So you can deposit fiat money into us, and we can safekeep it for you. And we can process payments for you. So within EU, an eMoney institution is basically a payment institution, but it's also allowed to issue eMoney. And that's kind of the next step. And within EU, there is nothing called stablecoin. It's called eMoney token. And the way EU sees stablecoins is that, well, this is actually an eMoney, only it's tokenized, so it's an eMoney token. And we already have a license for that, and that's called an eMoney institution. So that basically just allows us as an eMoney institution in Norway to passport that into all the European countries. So, and the way that works is that we inform the Norwegian FSA, telling we want to operate as an eMoney institution in all the other European countries, and we're going to do this. We're going to do issuing eMoney tokens. And then they basically do that work. And then, of course, it comes by being and operating as an eMoney institution. You're supervised, and the Norwegian FSA has the oversight, and they do audits. And there's also, of course, guidelines and regulations telling us how and what we can do with the money that is deposited that we issue the eMoney for, and then also the processes about how the issuing and redemption is happening. So it's all about consumer protection, really.
Thank you for that, and I definitely do appreciate that. I would like to maybe just ask a quick follow-up. Are there any misconceptions surrounding the eMoney license that you hear about a lot? Or is there anything that it doesn't allow you to do that you want to sort of state to the community? But then as a follow-up, I know that there are the MiCA regulations. A lot of that is still sort of ongoing in terms of implementation. Do you mind maybe highlighting if there's any sort of changes or things that you guys have to do from a regulatory standpoint when that goes into full effect?
Actually, not when it comes to eMoney. Well, the MiCA says that we have to issue a white paper, but that is kind of already done. So actually, and that's one of the funny things, and that's why we can actually start passporting this already. Is because what we're actually going to do with Mehen, that falls under an existing regulation that has been in place in EU since at least the last 14 years or something like that. So it's like, okay, we were lucky on this one. So I guess. But when Mika comes in place, we will be able also to passport kind of the crypto asset business and operation that we also do. But the eMoney institution license is kind of ranked higher anyway.
I would highlight that we are a publicly listed company in Norway, so we actually have to publish all our assets and books and have yearly reports. So when you have centralized actors doing issuance, and we will be a co-issuer, it's important to have that type of transparency. So you will have the Oracle on-chain, but you'll also have visibility into our assets. As being a visible actor in the Euronext growth, basically the stock exchange here in Norway. So I wanted to highlight that as well.
Yeah, that's important. I appreciate that. Obviously, with the USDM team working with Charlie 3, there's been sort of a very similar pattern, right? With transparency, openness, being able to verify, you know, how much is being in custody and how much has been minted. Okay, let's move over a little bit. I think timelines are always important. People are always asking when in this particular space. So this is an open question. Anybody's able to go ahead and answer, but do you guys maybe mind breaking down, number one, the process, and then number two, when we could actually see, you know, stable coins being issued by NBX. So in terms of the process, you know, how will that work? Are you guys providing liquidity to sort of bootstrap? Are users within the EU going to be able to deposit fiat in order to exchange that for USDM? I'd love to get a better understanding of that process, and then sort of the timeline as to when you guys expect for this to go live as well. Obviously, if you guys can share.
Okay, so I promised my CTO that I was not going to promise any timelines. So and he's just gone that level. So I'm not going to do that. But we're working on it. And we have started the process of the passporting, and of course that is kind of basically an external factor that is not within kind of our control. And of course, you have a regulation saying that it shouldn't take longer than this. And I don't really expect that to be the blocker. When it comes to kind of the business technical things, such that having a US dollar account that the customers can deposit to, we already have that. So we kind of already have those things in place. Of course, we have to work with our financial institution and explaining them what this is going to be, how it's going to look like for them. Of course, that's important for them to understand. So we have all these kind of things that we need to do in parallel with the technical integration. But for us, it's not very complex, technical, difficult things. We mostly have all the things in place, but we definitely need to agree on a few things or we have to decide on a few things with the Mehen team about how we want the flow of funds to go, and what inside transparency it should be between us, which is probably going to be very high, and then of course and then also of course for the customers as well. So yeah, but it's like, for us this is very exciting. So this is something that we prioritize very high up on the agenda, really. So yeah.
All right. So it sounds like no official confirmation on the launch date, but you guys are obviously prioritizing it, meaning that it probably would happen sooner rather than later. I look forward to covering that. Matt, over to you.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a few months till we can get this thing going. And so let's just put sooner rather than later means like not next year. It's a 2024 thing, not a 2025 thing.
For sure.
I think there have been some questions that, what does an NBX issued version of USDM look like? And is it going to be the same reserve? Is it going to be the same policy ID? Is it going to be the same token? And I think that the answer to all those questions is yes, it'll be the same token, same policy ID. And I think that one of the operational things we have to do is open up joint access to all the reserve accounts so that NBX can mint off of the same reserve that USDM is issued off of from the US side. And so we want to make sure that we don't get any double counting, any double spending. We don't want to make sure that if somebody in the U.S. mints USD or USDM sends in dollars to the reserve, that they get those, and that it's not minted, that the same, the Oracle goes up and then NBX mints off of that number. So we have those sort of technical things to work on, but it's going to be the same reserve, same accounts. And then there's, like Stig said, there's some discussions with our banking partners about getting access for the other party in the different accounts and things. So there'll be there's a few operational things to work out on the back end when it comes to just edge cases, corner cases about what happens with dollars here, dollars there. So there's a little bit of that, but for the most part, it's going to be it's a fairly clean integration from the user standpoint, where if you're in the EU, you go to NBX, you set up an account, and you trade all your cryptocurrency there. You bring your entire relationship there. The ideal situation would be the NBX would be the Cardano community's exchange in Europe, and then they would use USDM. They would get all of their Cardano native assets there, get ADA, get their other crypto assets, get their Bitcoin and their Ether or whatever else they're getting, and then the same for USDM would be part of that package. And then if you're in the US, you would go to the Mehen website, Mehen.io, and then get the USDM there, and use it as you would in the same way you would use it if you're coming from Europe. So it's going to be a seamless, simple thing from the user standpoint, but maybe not so simple from the back end. We want to make sure we have all those edge cases covered before we go and start launching things. So that's how we think it's going to be.
Thank you for answering some of those questions from the community, of course. I do want to ask a quick question, and I think this might be for Matt, given his expertise with the US side of the equation. Are there any differences that you foresee when it comes to retail or institutional adoption of USDM when you take a look at how it works in the US versus how it'll work with NBX in the EU?
One of the things that we're looking at is the difference between how the reserve needs to be treated in the US and the EU. In many cases, EU eMoney has to be held in the reserve at a banking institution in the EU. So there are a few of these regulatory issues that if we're in the US and we issue USDM, the US issued USDM, the reserve can be treasuries, it can be money market funds, it can be high quality liquid assets. If it's issued by the EU team, it has to be in a bank. And so that's a very clear regulation. So we might end up having to shift the USDM reserves in the US into a banking institution instead of using money market funds like we do now. But again, that's a question that's going to have to be kind of sorted out in the implementations. But there shouldn't be any other changes that we have to make to the token. One thing I'm excited about is the potential for additional currencies that this would offer, and they've already had the questions about when, like EU RM, and we'll see about that later.
So at this point, we are going at about 28 minutes. I do want to give the NBX team an opportunity to maybe highlight anything that I may have missed in terms of my agenda and questions. So maybe, Einstein, and Stig, is there anything that you guys want to add before we sort of shift the conversation back over to Matt, diving into some of their updates?
Not really. I think you covered most of it. So yeah, we're just very excited about this opportunity and the partnership and serving the Cardano community, the fiat stablecoin that they can actually trust and that they deserve.
Perfect and nicely put. Again, I do appreciate the both of your guys' time. Moving forward, I've got just a couple of questions that remain. If you guys have to drop off, I completely understand. If you want to hang around and maybe add anything else as Matt responds to some of these follow-up questions, feel free to go ahead and do so. All right, Matt, so you are officially on the hot seat. The remainder of the questions here are just targeted at you. All right. But I've got faith in you. You do an amazing job all the time. So are there any updates surrounding the pipeline for retail? As you know, that's sort of been the next item on your guys' agenda. I felt like a lot of it was when mainnet. Obviously, mainnet is now done. We now have some businesses onboarded, but when can we see retail being able to mint USDM?
Yeah, we have a few changes we have to make to the platform in order to make it usable for retail. The scalability on the fiat side is really our main concern, that we want to make sure that we have a good scalable way to send dollars to users who burn USDM, and to also receive values of all dollar values of any amount that would be sent in to mint USDM. So what we're thinking about is scalability solutions, and I think this is the type of thing that NBX has had to deal with since they launched. Is having to deal with all of the little edge cases of of institutions, different banks integrating different ways of making payments. I know in the EU there are, the funny thing that we've found about for doing this business is that as much as we think the U.S. banking system is very robust and very advanced, the payments infrastructure in the EU is far better, and so we have to deal with a lot of kind of different technologically technologically unsophisticated transaction processes that you would not necessarily see in the EU. So we're going through this right now, and we want to make sure that we are scalable and a good user experience for everybody. So right now it's really about getting scalable payment solutions on the fiat side. The blockchain side is going very well. We've I think this past weekend we shut down the wallet integrations. We'd like to get that back up again, but we have to make some changes that would make that process a lot easier. The technology team is working very hard on getting this, and we've added a few hands to bring additional capabilities to that team so that we can have full expertise on the matter. So you might see some things out of us for announcements coming soon, but we'll certainly let you know how that goes. I'm not in a position right now to say anything definitive about timing on retail launch or timing on scalability solutions, but this is the kind of thing that you don't know the problem until you get there. You can anticipate it and you can work around it, but when you actually have to find and code to the actual issues that have to be resolved, then sometimes it's a little more difficult than you anticipated. And that's kind of where we are right now. That that's really how things are. But we're very excited to push forward through this and then have really scalable solutions. One of the other things about doing this is we have been approached by a number of entities that want to provide ample liquidity for the USDM token, but we've basically told them that we need to kind of wait until we're able to scalably serve the community. I think that once there's millions of USDM in the ecosystem, then there's going to be a lot of people who want to integrate it. And then with that integration will also come a lot of people who want to monetize it back into dollars. And until we can serve the retail community, I don't think we want them to have to rely on this stablecoin in those DeFi protocols just yet. So it's a lot of chicken and egg. It's a lot of wait for this until that. But right now we're working on all of the things that need to be done for this final retail push. And it really is. I mean, I've got over the weekend, we had hundreds of updates in our workflow tracking systems, and we had updates on the Git labs and the other code repositories, and they're working very hard to get this final bit resolved. We have meetings with the banks this coming week. We've got a lot of things happening, so I'll let you know how it goes. But for now, we're pressing through, and we're going to get this thing tidied up very soon.
Thank you for the clarity and the honesty there. I think that's been a piece, again, that I've received a lot of comments about. And of course, I'm not, anywhere in the position to be able to answer that. So I do always appreciate having you here to sort of give us the clarity, but then also set expectations for the community. I do have a quick follow-up, and I also want to take a moment to plug in the monthly newsletter that the USDM or the Mehen team brings out. For the viewers, if you guys want to stay updated when it comes to everything USDM, I'll leave the link to their newsletter subscription down below. Make sure to go ahead and sign up. And as soon as updates are available, those get sent directly to your inbox. That's actually how I found out about the NBX partnership. Now, as a quick follow-up, Matt, can you just clarify for us, when the retail goes live in the US, will that be at the same exact time that it goes live for NBX, or are those on two separate timelines?
Yeah, we'll be far earlier than the NBX partnership. So it'll be US retail first, and then the NBX integration will happen. That'll happen on its own timeline, and we'll be able to announce things, in turn with them. I think NBX, I don't want to speak too much for you and your team, but the passporting process is going to be one that'll be iterative throughout the EU. And so I think we want to make sure that they get a little ways down that road until you could serve really most or all of the EU. and before we start doing any kind of retail launches in that jurisdiction. So that's going to be one of those, like Stig said, external blockers. So it's going to be a totally different timeline. The US timeline is going to be kind of similar, where we have 17 states in the EU, in the US, and then we have, as different licenses come online, we'll add additional states to the eligible areas. But it'll be retail in those 17 states as soon as we can finish buttoning down these last little bits of the technology side.
That will actually take me into my next question, which was to get an update surrounding adoptions in states. So how is that going? Obviously, I think the goal would be to have all states supporting the minting and issuance of USDM. But are there any updates from that perspective that you can share here with us?
We don't have anything for that right now. No, we're working. The part of the retail launch is to build the platform with the reporting specifications that are needed for all 50 states. So once we have the retail launch ready, we're going to launch the retail in a way that we are operating as if we were regulated in all those states. So we'll have all of the information necessary, and we'll have all the operational demonstrations for those states that they can then review with our application and understand that our processes are robust and that we can go and operate as though they would like us to when we go to those states. So that's the other thing, where it's kind of a high bar to get into all of the states. And so that's actually what we're looking for. Even states that are notoriously difficult, such as New York, want to operate as though we were required to record all the information and do all of the reporting that is necessary for those states, and then also have our operational footprint be what it needs to be to scale into the thousands or millions of users, depending on where we need to go. So that's really what we're doing with that, is we're building the operations as though we were going to have to report and do all the regulatory matters for all 50 states.
Thank you. I've got two questions, and then we'll go ahead and wrap up today's interview. The next is following potential integrations on other blockchains. So this has been a pretty big topic. We've seen multiple projects here. I won't name any by name that have sort of stirred the pot here, right? When they've announced that they're going to be stepping out, going to support, projects or to support other ecosystems like Bitcoin, Ethereum, you name it. We've got projects expanding. Could we see USDM following suit?
You could. I think that we need to work on the Rosen Bridge integration with the Ergo platform is a very exciting opportunity. Native Ergo USDM would be something we'd like to look at, but I think beyond that, we have a lot to chew on these days, and we'd like to just fix the things that need to be fixed, finish the things that need to be finished, and then get to this to serve the Cardano community. Second blockchain, probably Ergo. Third blockchain, I don't know. We'll see that we get there when we get there.
That's some pretty solid alpha. I do appreciate you sharing that. My last and final question here for you, Matt, is surrounding liquidity. So obviously partnering up with NBX, they've got a major piece of the pie there in the EU. This will offer a lot more liquidity to the platform and to the protocol. But a lot of people, want higher numbers in terms of liquidity, and they think that that's directly going to be correlated to adoption, right? And I tend to think that we probably all would agree, right? The more liquidity, the easier it is for people to come in and say, hey, we're on board with this, we're on board with using this, etc. So are there any plans for increasing the liquidity? I know you guys have been integrating, talking with different protocols here in Cardano. I mentioned earlier me sitting down with you and Lars to talk about how you guys are sort of aiming to increase trading volume on the Genius Shield DEX. But are there any other initiatives, and just maybe what are your overall thoughts surrounding the liquidity in the current state of USDM?
Yeah, there's been a lot of questions we've had. So how are the founding entities helping you? How is the ecosystem supporting you? How are some of the bigger players that have been supportive of Cardano projects working with you? And we've had good conversations with all of them. We've had a lot of great support, active support from the Cardano Foundation. We've had a lot of great active support from the other parts of Cardano, and the other founding entities have been very supportive. I think when it comes to providing liquidity, we've been trying to prevent onboarding a lot of liquidity right now, and that sounds counterintuitive, because everybody wants everything right now. But the problem is, until everything operates smoothly and as expected, we have a good user experience for the community, you're going to find a lot of people who encounter USDM without having viewed all of your videos and without having good understanding of where we are on our development and launch path. And so somebody in a state that we're not authorized to operate in, so say somebody in Texas comes and mints USDM, or not, comes, gets USDM from the ecosystem, wants to come and burn it, and they have a difficult experience where they say, well, actually, you can't burn USDM in Texas, and so then there's an educational curve there. We want to make sure that we have good retail operations. We're not onboarding new institutional users. We're not onboarding new retail users right now. We're focused on getting the findings that we've had from the institutional launch resolved, and those things are going to have to come first. So before we get like big, large scale institutional liquidity in, we have a couple of things we have to fix, and then once those are fixed, I think you might see a lot more.
Perfect.
And that's really us telling them, like, we appreciate the support. Stay there for just a little bit, and we'll get to you in a second.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. And obviously, as you know, patience runs very thin here in this space.
Yep.
A lot of people get very antsy. They want to see things happen right away or overnight. And in Web 2, it's not the case. So I'm not sure why they would expect anything else in Web 3. In closing, I did want to maybe just reintroduce the NBX team back in here for one sort of off the cuff question. I'd love to sort of get their take on this, but during Project Catalyst funding round number 12, there was a kickoff in, I think it was Barcelona, but there was an integration or an addition of a brand new category, right? So it's called the real world partner integrations, where there's, I believe, 8 million ADA being set aside for tier 1 type relationships, right? So these are for businesses that are generating, I think, over 5 million per year. And these are businesses that have been up and running for over 2 years, right? So obviously, I think NBX falls within that category. Would you guys be open to, putting out some sort of proposal to add support for additional Cardano native tokens, right? Given, sort of like the initiation with USDM. I believe you guys already have ADA trading on your platform, but would you guys be open to, a bigger partnership where we see maybe, the top 30, 40, 50 Cardano native tokens listed on NBX?
Stig, should I take that one? So there's a few things I would like to say here. One is about CNTs. We would love to do trading pairs with USDM. This is something that's been lacking, like these fiat-backed stablecoins together paired with the CNTs on centralized exchanges. When it comes to the number, we do have all our due diligence that we need to do. So we need to look through each project. We have actually like AML and KYC ranking. Like, I think last time I checked, we were number 6 in the world according to Hop Trails, and we take that very seriously. So any project we do will have to go through a due diligence process. But we listed actually a proposal Fund 11 that was based on another coin, and it was top 5 projects, and we are definitely interested in looking into 5 or 10 tokens as a package, and looking into listing that on our exchange. And one big thing here is like actually Mehen has paved the way, because we now are implementing the CNT technology on our platform, so we are able to more easily than launch other tokens as well. I would add some other things like that's quite interesting. For example, NBX has a Visa card, NBX Visa, and some of the things you could look into there is, for example, USDM purchases through NBX Visa. We also could look into a partnership together with one of the top companies doing analytics. So there's a company called Chainalysis. And if they had some form of CNT integration, that would pave the way for a lot of centralized exchanges if you did that, and will be a massive benefit to the Cardano ecosystem. And we as an exchange could be a partner to look into that. But that's probably much more further away. But a CNT marketplace, absolutely, we are very interested in that. I could add one last thing, and hopefully Stig will stop me if I do too much, but we also launched Sunsphere X. It's actually going to be solar parks, and we're going to have real world assets, because NBX is positioning itself as a real world asset platform. And you can imagine Cardano being the very environmental friendly blockchain that has all the staking pools. You have the CNC Alliance doing all this like for protecting the environment. Like, just imagine if you could issue and have these solar panels on Cardano network, and then you could even have yield from staking pools buying solar panels and having ownership. And that's so powerful because instead of having to have the cost of having it on your roof locally, you can dramatically lower that cost by owning ownership in a solar park. And it's way more traceable on the blockchain. So yeah, we do have some things we are considering, absolutely.
What a way to close us out here for today's interview. You talked about integration with Chainalysis, RWA support with the solar panels, and then the potential of a integration, right, or the ability to at least spend USDM directly from the NBX credit card. So I'll be definitely keeping my eyes peeled. Again, the both of you guys are more than welcome back on my channel in the future to talk about your ongoing Catalyst proposals. Matt already knows he's got the open door here. But that will do it for today's video, sitting down with Einstein, Stig, and Matthew Plowman to talk about NBX and their partnership with USDM. As always, if you guys found any portion of today's video to be helpful, I would really appreciate you if you could smash that thumbs up. If it's your first time stopping by Dapp Central and you want more content like this highlighting the biggest builders here in Cardano, consider subscribing. And if you have any questions surrounding any of the topics that we discussed when it comes to NBX, their eMoney license, USDM, their roadmap and timelines, then please make sure to go ahead and leave those comments down below. That said, and as always, we'll see you all in the next video.